So there's a couple of hacks and tricks that can really get you flying over the pentatonic scale really quite quickly, and that's what I want to demonstrate to you this week. So there are a few issues with the pentatonic scale that can make them really quite difficult to play at speed, and they all kind of emerge from the fact that there are only two notes on a string, and what that does is it affects you in two ways. One is your speed tends to be limited by how fast you can trill. And the other issue that you get from this is that you find that you do an awful lot of string changes. If you want to create any kind of extended line, you have to start changing between quite a few strings, and that creates all kinds of problems with your picking technique as well. So what can we do about that? Well, we can stretch out, and instead of playing two notes on a string, we can play three. So all I'm doing is I'm reaching out for that third note from the next shape up. And we can do that on the next string. And what that does is it gives us a repeated note, which means it doesn't sound great when you just play it like a scale like that. But what it does is it gives us a whole range of possibilities when it comes to swapping between strings and transitioning between them and picking approaches. And what I thought I'd do this week is demonstrate some of this. So what I've done is I picked 4 licks. The first one is that classic Eric Johnson, Joe Bonamassa descending 5-note pattern. And you find that that greatly simplifies when you take this approach to playing it, as I'll demonstrate later on. And then we'll simplify that to a little 4-note pattern, and then we'll show a 3-note and a 2-note pattern. And again, with those, you'll just see how much easier it is to change between strings, how that simplifies when you take this approach. Now, just like I always try and do, I've created a PDF and I've attached that to the description field. That's free to download. There's nothing to subscribe to. You don't have to join my Patreon page in order to download it or anything like that. Just help yourself to that. Okay, let's start with that Eric Johnson, Joe Bonamassa type lick. Before we start with the new approach, let's look at the approach that Eric Johnson or Joe Bonamassa would do. So what they'd do is they'd start a pentatonic line, and that line would take them across 3 strings. Can you see that? 5 notes. And then after that last note, they'd sweep down and start the next line. So this has got a couple of problems associated with it. Like I say, you can see I can play that 5-note passage about as fast as I can do a trill. And you can see that there's a lot of string. Each 5-note phrase touches 3 strings. And the other problem to it is a little bit more subtle, and that's when you finish one phrase, you start the next phrase with that sweep. Which means that your pick is kind of buried between the strings. Which is fine if you just want to play these descending lines, but if you actually want to take a 5-note pattern and move it all over the place, it starts to become more problematic. Yeah. So that's the approach that you'd see Eric or Joe use. So let's try a different approach. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch out for that first note, and I'm going to start my phrase with an upstroke. So that's 3 notes on one string, and then I sweep through and play 2 notes on the string below, and you can see I finish with an upstroke ready for finish with a downstroke ready for an upstroke for the next phrase. Let's have a look inside and see if I can demonstrate what's going on. So you can see I'm starting with that 3 notes on the E string, but on the B string now I play 2 notes and then I start the next phrase. So all those 5 notes are on one string. Yeah, and then I do the same thing on the G string. So there's nothing like the same amount of hopping that's involved when you play a phrase like this. And you notice as well, when I finish the phrase, my pick is free in order to move that phrase anywhere else on the neck. So I can move this phrase to, because my pick is not trapped between strings, yeah? Yeah. And the other nice thing about doing it this way is that you can turn it around. If you start your phrase with an upstroke again and play 2 notes on the lower string, you find that you can sweep across for those 3 notes on the next string up, and then you start the phrase with an upstroke again. 3 notes. You see that? And again, you're playing 5 notes a string. You're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the A string, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the D string. So can you see how much easier it is to approach these phrases in this way? Now we can take this idea and simplify it, just drop the last note, and that creates a 4-note phrase. And this time, if we alternate pick, because it's a 4-note phrase, we find that our pick is ready for the next part. And that creates a nice little 4-note descending pattern, yeah? And can you see again, on each string this time there are 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And turning this phrase around, I like to start with 3 notes on the string and then reach up for that 2nd note on the A string and then start the phrase again. So no string hopping, again, makes it much easier to play. Okay, and we can take that idea, that concept, and use it for 3-note licks as well. So what's the really classic one is just 3 notes descending. So if I play it in this kind of the classical way. See, the problem with this is that string change in between the 2 strings. So 1, 2, 3, I'm playing between the E and the B string there, between the G and the B. So I'm playing 1 note on the B and 1 note on the G, and I'm alternating between the 2. And that's where the problems happen with a phrase like this. It's all in those areas where you're crossing strings. So we can approach this using exactly the same technique. Let's do that using these stretched out pentatonics. So I play 3 notes, start the next phrase on the E, 2 notes, and then play that 3rd note on the B, and then I'll reach out to start the next phrase. And by stretching out, again, I don't need to do all of that messing around between 2 strings. And can you see I'm playing 6 notes on each string? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So no string hopping when you approach it in this way, which is really good. And as you can see, it turns around just as easily. You can play an ascending line just as easily as you play a descending line. And again, I can do a really classic 2-note lick, which is see all the string hopping involved in this. If I play it in a kind of a classical way. But if I use this extended pentatonic idea, it reduces down into just 4 notes a string. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, I can turn it around. Now give yourself a good 2 or 3 weeks on this to develop those motor skills, to really start to understand what it feels like to stretch out across the pentatonic shapes like that. And you find that once you've been doing this for a while, you start doing this naturally. These are also great shapes if you want to try out that interleaving practice technique that I talked about in previous videos. It's well worth taking that approach on here, and you'll find you develop those motor skills that much faster if you use an efficient practice technique like that. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hopefully that was useful for you, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.